Stories with Brisco and Bradshaw. I would be Bradshaw. That would be the WWE Hall of Famer, Oklahoma's favorite son, Mr. Gerald Brisco. And we have got the man that WWE voted the biggest superstar in ECW history. He held the ECW title 700 days, only giving it up due to injury. He's the one of only two superstars to hold the WWE, ECW, and TNA title. Six-time Intercontinental Champion, Mr. Monday Night, unless he's wrestling on Friday night, and then he's Mr. Friday Night. He is Mr. Rob Van Dam, who changed the business. Rob, welcome to the show.
Thanks, dude. Yeah, quite an intro there. I thought I was expecting Shane Douglas to run up until you mentioned that 700-day run.
Hey, Rob, it's a pleasure having you on our little show here, man. We talked a little bit before we come on the air about you. I watched some of your interviews, and I see that cabinet back there. That's the most fascinating thing. It's like a damn a music light back there with the colors coming off. Tell us a little bit about where you're at and where you live and what's going on in your life.
Okay, well, I've been living in Las Vegas for the last 3 years. Katie Forbes and I got married in November. Some people don't know that, but we called it, I called her my wife for a long time anyway. So it was probably confusing. Everything is so awesome. I'm a lot busier wrestling this year than I thought that I would be. Like last year, I wrestled like twice. This year, it's like maybe 12 times. I think I'm like halfway through, and I still got 5 or 6 matches to go. One is this weekend at the Mall of America in Minneapolis. And I've been going to Japan for Noah. Great talent over there. I was watching Muto is retiring. He's got 5 matches left. He makes this big announcement. One of those matches was when I was over there, just July 16th. And
so man, you get one of Muto's retirement matches?
I wish I did, but honestly, I was so humbled watching their match because I went out there and one of the guys I was working, Misawa, I'm sorry, with an N. He's one of the bookers, so hey, what he wants, fine.
Yeah.
He's still nervous because he's such an ECW fan. And he wanted to, it was me, myself and Tanaka against Super Crazy and Misawa. So it was just an ECW match. And man, I felt like the crowd was over appreciative, as was the company, for what we did. And then Muto went out there with, I think the kid's name is Kojo. I'm not sure, but he went out there and to have one of these matches. And oh my God, I was like so impressed. Like it was humbling just to watch like the story that they told and how much they drew all of us into it in a way that was so increasingly compelling. And by Muto, he kept going for that finish, that leg sweep of his, and every time he'd go to do it, there'd be a counter, and you kept thinking this time he's got it, boom, and it was just so good. Wow. It was so good. I was thinking, man, that would be an incredibly different match to have than what they brought me over for last time. But I think they expected a lot less than they got out of me too. I went in June, 6-man tag match, and they kind of had it set up so I could be take it easy or whatever. And I was like, no, man, I'm gonna start this match, with the young boys, bring them out. I just been feeling good, been feeling a lot better this year than I have like in the last 10 years. So
from what you described with Muto's match, sounds like he's still really that old school talent in there that likes to tell long stories and mix everything in that gets the people up. Now, has the Japanese crowd and Japanese style, because it's been years and years since I've been competing over in Japan, has it changed recently?
So check this out. Because of COVID, they're not allowed to be loud in public.
They never were, unless they had some.
That during COVID, I wrestled in some completely empty studios, like for Impact, and I thought that sucked, but it was kind of easy, also depending on how you looked at it. But having a crowd out there and going to them and going like RVD, and it's like a mellow, like I can only hear them like saying it. Man, it wasn't easy for me. I count on that connection. As soon as I got off the airplane, they started filming me. They wanted to get me at the airport arriving, so I just started saying, "RVD's back," and and they took the camera down. They're like, when they're, and I was like, "What?" And they're saying, because of spray, maybe. And so the crowd, when for their reaction, they can clap or clap with their feet, but then their vocal expression has to be toned way down. And what's funny is that I don't think Americans would adhere to those instructions.
No,
They don't.
I think it'd be too tough for them. That's something that's so tough in a sporting event. Somebody you really love or a team you really love to not do much.
Yeah, but they've always been ahead of us with organization and stuff like that. I used to think their conformity. That's a good way to put it. Like even when I was just 22, my first time going over to Japan, I noticed how at the intersections, when the walking light would change and say walk, everybody goes over together in a group, and all the men were dressed the same, all the women dressed the same. And that would happen at the red light too. Even if we were like 6, 7 cars back, we could go when it turns green because we're all moving like a train. Whereas here, one car goes and then the next car waits until they're so many yards away. They slowly take their foot off the brake, and they're just more productive and progressive in that manner. Always have been.
How's the business in Japan right now? Wrestling business?
It's good as far as I can tell. In my understanding of it, that it's I kind of forgot about it for a while, but I didn't even realize it existed. But I guess I don't really know overall. I'm told that New Japan is probably is still the #1 group, and man, they had some the first show in June that I was on with Noah. They had a couple other companies on there too. And one of them, it's called DDT. Oh my God, I was embarrassed watching the matches. Not my kind of style at all. It was so gross. It was about a dude in a tea bag, like taking that off and sitting on the other guy's face. And the whole match, though, it wasn't like one spot. It was just the whole thing was him smothering the guy's face with his butthole, and I was just like, I was watching the monitor before we went up, and everyone in the dressing room was laughing at my reaction. And don't worry, that's not our company. I'm like, oh, well, thank God, but this is our show. I don't know.
Well, from that, Rob, from a guy trying to in a tea bag trying to moon somebody's face in the ring there, that's quite a ways from Battle Creek, Michigan, where you first grew up. And is that Battle Creek? Was Sheik the guy that you guys watched? Or did you go down to Kellogg Center watch Georgia Championship Wrestling coming into town about that? Or what inspired the RVD to become RVD, Mr. Friday night, Thursday night, Tuesday night, whatever night we want?
Well, that's it's a pretty broad, several questions there, but I only got WWF when I was growing up. I didn't know there was any other wrestling until I already had it in my mind that I wanted to be a wrestler, which happened at my first live show. I went to the Kellogg Center, watched a show, WWF show, and somebody on the inside, looking back, possibly a groupie, but she told me she was a manager and she was like a friend through our parents. So I met her there, and she put it in my head that she could get me into the business since I loved it so much. I was such a big fan. And then I never thought of anything else. I was like focused on that. I took my very first trip by myself, like when I was in high school, or that year anyway. And I went and visited Killer Kowalski's school in Boston, because there was an ad in a magazine, a wrestling magazine, that said For $5, they would send you a list of all the wrestling schools in the country or in the world or whatever. And it's, I did that. And I got this list. Some of them were addresses, some were phone numbers. So I was writing some people. I still remember, talking to ones, Larry Sharp. I was talking to him. I was hearing body slams in the background. So I was like really excited, because I'm 18 years old. And Johnny Hunter in North Carolina, I talked to him on the phone. He said, "Are you married?" I said, "No, I'm still in high school." And he said, "Good, stay that way. The wrestling and marriages don't work. You'll have other women on the road and she'll have other men in your house while you're gone." I'll always remember that. But whatever it was, Kowalski School was the one that I thought I could get the most for my money. And I went and visited the school, and Kowalski was super cool, picked me up from the airport and drove me around, everything. I was saving money, bagging groceries, doing odd jobs for wrestling school. And this really big power lifter dude came through and struck up a conversation. And then he said he was training with the Sheik. And I didn't even at the time know who the Sheik was. I'd heard of him, but I hadn't been exposed to any other company, except for WWF at that time. But he ended up bringing me there. And of course, back then, it wasn't just like, "Hey, do you got enough money? Come on in." I had to, get in the ring. I had to show everything that I did, all my talent. I had to show them everything that I claimed I could do, because I said, "I'm a kickboxer. And I do all these spin kicks and splits. I'm acrobatic. I could do flips."
Not to cut you off there, but I'm going to. How much martial arts training did you have when you got hooked up with Sheik?
So I had probably at that time maybe like 4 or 5 arts, but like I never was with one long enough to go through like all the belts and stuff. There was a ring. There was a ring in town, and we went to in some guy's backyard. And when we went to talk to the guy about getting in the ring to wrestle, me and my friends, he made us go through his kickboxing stuff first, because he was a kickboxer. So he would make us go through his training, his stretching, his classes, and then the wrestlers could have the ring. So I got into that. I was knocking everybody out and found out I could also take a good punch. And I was like, I was the best out of my friends by far. And I was hanging with his guys that were bragging about, their experiences. So I got into that. And then I went to the local dojos in Battle Creek. One was the Battle Creek Budokan. It taught kendo, aikido, and karate. And first I went there on one of those coupon books. I had like 2 free weeks or something. And then I'd get over with the trainers and they'd invite me back. And that's what happened everywhere. There was at the Kellogg Community College, there was someone that taught Tung Sudo. And didn't go there very much, but I had a friend that did a lot. And I went a couple times with him, and he would show me Todd Tatami's Taekwondo, same thing. And I would go, but I really enjoyed like the sparring of it, because some of these kids that were bragging that they were brown belts or whatever, I was like, "Dude, I'm knocking this dude out," and he's saying it. So I really liked the competing of it. So we would do kickboxing shows with that guy that owned the ring. His name was Kit Likens. Now, with what I know, he was a lot like a wrestling promoter, but at the time, he wasn't as respected by the rest of the martial arts community that I met, because they would say things that like he advertises people that aren't going to be on his posters. He made his own championship belt, this and that. He smokes weed. That was one of the So at the time, it was like I was doing both sides of the fences, but learning what I could. And so I was competing with kids shows, which most of them were at bars and outdoor parties. And so there could be a couple of fights, because someone in the crowd drinking would always want to get in the ring. And I was just hungry to learn, and we had these 16-ounce gloves on. So it wasn't like anybody was going to get real hurt. I'd be like, "Yeah, let me have them." and Kid Likens had 2 losses. One of them was Terry Gay. That's probably where I learned the most. I went to Terry Gay's school then, ran into him in a mall and read his jacket, said Super T's Karate. And then me and my best friend that did everything with me, everything, Dango. We trained under him, and his guys were tough. And we would just spar, and it'd be like 90% sparring. Like, we'd really be going at it. But if you really connected and hit someone in the nose, you might pause and go, "Oh, are you all right?" Just for a second, go, "Yeah," and keep going. Like, it was really rough. Every time came out with bloody lips, bloody nose, and those guys were experienced. And just that I could hang a little with them, allowed me to learn a lot from them. And then I did a couple of tough man contests. I think I did one tough man contest before I met the Sheik. But I remember after I started schooling with the Sheik, I wanted to do another tough man, and I was afraid he'd get pissed if he found out I did it, because his contract was so onerous. Like, that's how they used to be. They used to give a shit if you were, working under their reputation. And so I signed a contract. Any booking within a couple of years would go through him, and this and that. But then later in life, I took Kaju Kenbo, and that was probably my favorite art. And I was probably 26, 27, living in Savannah, Georgia then. And same kind of thing. I got over with the instructor, Seafood Doug Katani, so he would let me in the class, and I would spar with him and stuff. And that was at the Gold's Gym in Savannah. And Kaju Kenbo has a combination of 5 different arts. Kaju Kenbo stands for karate, kenpo, judo, boxing, Kaju Kenbo. There's one other one in there, even though there's only 4 syllables. Karate, kenpo, judo, boxing, jiu-jitsu. And anyway, that was what I had the most fun with. And it's like realistic, punching people in the temple or putting your fingers in their eyes, not friendly competition like boxing with 16-ounce gloves and foot pads. But that's kind of the extent of what I did. And so Sheik was like, "Well, show me these kicks, show me these flips." So I had to do all of that by myself in the ring and exhaust myself. Like, what else? I can do this, and then eventually he put Sabu in the ring with me, and Sabu grabbed me and he's pushing me and pulling me and jerking me around the ring. And I don't even know what I'm supposed to be doing. I guess he's testing my coordination and balance and whatever. And I didn't really know, like, I didn't know, a little bit of stretching me. I mean, as far as like Sabu, like, tested me a little bit. And at the end of the day, I didn't know how I did until Sheik said, "Come back next week and bring me some money."
Where did you first figure out how to do the splits? Was this something that you were just very flexible, or was this something that was a learned trade?
I had to learn how to do it, and I really liked the stretching part of gym class, calisthenics. Like, I don't know, I started really enjoying the benefits of that little 10-minute warm up that Mr. Larson would make us do before whatever sport we were playing. And so I started, and then with martial arts, I really was interested in being able to kick higher and use less energy to even kick the same amount of high, have that be less of a range of my motion, because that would just make sense. It would be easier to do that even if you're only kicking knee high. So I taught myself, and then the first time I saw somebody actually doing the elevated split was Jean-Claude Van Damme in Bloodsport. And then I was like, man, I want to learn how to do that. And I was kind of close, but seeing that gave me the idea to use my mom's kitchen chairs and actually hold on to a broomstick and actually try that a few times. And at first I could only do it for a few seconds, but I just kept working on it until I could. At the gym, I would line up 2 benches and I would jump up and I would just land in a split, like boom. And then, yeah. And then one guy that was more of a veteran said, "Why? I mean, I would understand if there's a purpose, but you're going to blow your knees out. That's stupid." So I quit doing it that way and came up with lifting the weight.
And you now are the world record holder in the lift that is now certified lift, right?
Well, so I got certified by this company called All Around Weightlifters Association. They do odd lifts, one arm bench press, things like that. And they came to this. It was a live event. You know, they officiated it. I never knew of anybody coming after it. But recently I've seen pictures and stuff of other people either trying. I haven't seen somebody do what I did with more weight, although I wouldn't be surprised if somebody could. But I've seen them do put their own spins on it, and lift with different things, whether it's holding a barbell overhead or holding two dumbbells or whatever. We originated it, call it the Van Dam lift, did it on ECW television against the officials, and I really don't know if I should look into it. I don't know if that like is something that still stands, or if it has to be renewed every so long, or if it will lose its validation. But what I do know is it was a national lift, unlike the legend, and I would have had to go to like Czechoslovakia or something, to some big event, if I wanted to establish as a worldwide lift. But the rumor, you know, was was bigger than the actual event, so we'll go with that one.
They usually are.
Yeah, people think I'm in Guinness Book of World Records. You know, there's some freaks in there. I'd have to be holding up a semi truck or something.
Well, one of the many things that I really respect about your long career was you did a lot of things, and you were injury free during a good portion of your career. And I always gave it to your ability to stretch, all your stretching and warming up. And I used to tell everybody, how's RVD do all that? I said, backstage, he's back there 45 minutes to an hour stretching his body out. And I really still think that's the key to guys staying injury free, is stretching their body out. But you had that a long time ago. Where'd that come in your mind?
Well, it was something that I developed over the years. You know, I still might add like one or two positions over a year, and it's something from exploring my body. You know what I mean? I might be on my stomach, pushing up, pushing my hips into the ground, and I might realize, hey, if I twist my shoulders clockwise, you know, it you know, like 40, I don't know, whatever degrees, you know, then I actually feel it more down here. And just from doing that, I find stuff that I learned to add, you know, from going inside my body and exploring that way. So I think you're right. What else could it be? You know, the injury statistics, I mean, except genetics, what else can you really put it on? And I always found it strange that nobody, with no exception that I know of, took the time to stretch like I did. Devon had a stretch routine, and so did CM Punk. And neither one of their routines was as long or as extensive as mine. But besides those two, most guys just kind of shrug their shoulders and go out there, right?
Right. Yeah.
You did stuff that 95% of us not only didn't do but couldn't do.
Couldn't do.
And how do you feel now? Because you did some crazy stuff. How's your body feel now?
I feel good. Yeah, I got something like around 2010-ish, 2010, 2011, where I had a herniated disc where my low rib connects to it, and that when that thing would lock up, you know, before my match I could barely even reach my boots, and I'm like, man, how am I going to get out? Dude, wow, what am I? And by the time it comes time for bell time, I'd always be warmed up enough in a state of mind to be able to go out there and do the job. But for sure, it hindered my performance. And man, that back pain would come on, and it would last for like 6 months, and then boom, it'd go away. And like for years, it would do that. When it would come on, I'd be like, oh great, I feel the back pain coming on like progressively over days. It would last for months. But from like 2010 till like this year, my back feels good. And if I have a bad back day, it's nowhere near as bad, and it lasts like one day. It's amazing. It's such a big difference. It's given me like a rejuvenation. And besides that, you know, everything else is is good. My shoulder and my wrist keep me from being able to lift really heavy because I used to always lift like real heavy and now I don't. But that's been since '93, so I did my whole career like that
Right.
with broken wrist. That happened in All Japan with a massive Dory funk, and it's bothered me since. So nothing new.
Was your first matches that you did, was it there for the Sheik in Michigan, or did you go down to Florida first?
Well, it was the Sheik show. The very first one was in Columbus, Ohio, and it's funny because I met a fan somewhere recently. I think it was at Bobby Fulton's show in Ohio at that Chillicothe, and the guy was at the show at my very first show, which would have been in 1990. Columbus, is it Columbus? I'm sorry, Toledo, Ohio. It was supposed to be outside at the Speedway racetrack, but it rained, so it got moved inside. Abdullah Butcher was on the show. Ken Patera was on the show, so I was excited, as a wrestling
Yeah,
fan.
of course.
Yeah. There was a ninja midget turtles in a cage.
That's great. That's great.
And I was protected from looking too green by having a kickboxing match. Me and my buddy Dango, who, as I said, we did everything together. We would go out there with gloves, smaller gloves than we would actually fight with, but we would go out there and fight. Maybe we'd have a couple of rounds, things would get ugly, the gloves come off, we start rolling around on the ground, big pull apart, and that's how the first 2 or 3 matches were until we got more comfortable and more ready to wrestle.
Well, Rob, I've known Sheik, the original Sheik, for a long, long time, and I know his style. Certainly, your style is not that Michigan style where the big guys are out there just beating the holy crap out of each other. Like you had Bobo Brazil, you had Crusher and Bruiser, you had all those big, huge guys there, and there wasn't a lot of flyers there. When did you kind of start developing the Rob? The RVD style of your work?
You had who'd you have? You had Leaping Larry Shane, Flying Fred Curry.
The Currys, yeah, Fred Curry and Bill Curry.
Yeah. Well, that was what drew me in as a fan, was the flying. I liked Leaping Lanny Poffo. He was my first favorite wrestler I can remember, even though I was the only one, and he would,
Lanny was good though, man. He really was.
And for me, he would do flying head scissors, a monkey flip, he did a moonsault, even though we didn't know what it was called, off the second rope. I'd never seen anything like that. So his thinking outside of the box is what drew me in and made me inspired. Same thing with Brady Boone. Right. When he had the mask on, was Battle Cat or
Battle Cat, yeah.
Yeah, and then later when Owen was the Blue Blazer, which by that time I was already, I think, in the business. But I'd never seen anybody drop down to their legs on the rope and do a flip from there. I don't think I was in the business. I remember doing that on my 4th match with Sabu in Vermont. So I don't know. It was around that time though. And so I guess that was always my thing, but we weren't allowed to do it in front of the Sheik. The Sheik just wanted us to lock up, headlock, go behind, take him down, try and pin him. If the guy was on his back on the mat, and I was doing, if I even thought about doing that, I would have gotten beat up. He was saying that only the champion should be able to flex his muscles, and that any other time, man, you're trying to win. His shoulders are on the mat. Pin him. What are you doing? Why are you leaving him? He's behind you. Pin him. And it was all about that. So looking back, something that I notice is missing in a lot of the wrestlers is their commitment to the moment. And that's what Sheik gave me. Like, he really made us believe what we were doing the whole time. There was no waiting for the next move. You know what I mean? Like, if I get thrown into the corner, I'm not one of those guys. I'm not just going to stand there and look across the ring and be waiting. bam, I'm going to be hitting my back or whatever. If anything, the guy working with me wonders if I'm going to be there for him, but that's because I'm working the whole time. Someone's choking me, I'm trying to get their hands off me. That was my training, and that's what I see missing a lot is like everyone's just kind of waiting for the next move, and that kills it. We wouldn't have been allowed to do that. Sheik made it real. He never once smartened us up. He never said, "Here's how you take care of somebody in any way. Here's how you slam somebody without hurting them. Here's how you fall without getting hurt." None of that ever. There was never, "Here's how you punch somebody and not break their face." It was all about, get them. What, are you hurting them? What are you hurt? Get out of the ring if you're fucking hurt. It was all like that.
I was in Europe, I think, when Flash Funk, Too Cold, and Chris Benoit had that match at WCW where people couldn't believe it. I mean, it was. Where were you when you saw this? And you were doing the same stuff. I mean, you three guys really changed the business. Did you feel like to Jerry's point, because the business before that was just kind of the big guys beating each other up. Did you feel like there was a place for that progression to come, and that it was going to come so big because you became one of the biggest stars in the 90s? Scorpio lit the world on fire. And then Benoit, of course, became a world champion as well.
What's funny is I literally thought that Too Cold Scorpio stole my moves when I first saw him on TV, because I never seen some of those moves done before, and I had sent a tape to WCW before I saw Scorpio, and then he's doing the flip and a half, which I've always missed because I never knew that I wouldn't kill the guy. But I really thought that they showed him the tape or whatever. But I was always trying to invent new moves. That's what I enjoyed way before I got into the business. For me, it was always, and Dango, we were always trying to come up with our own stuff for whatever reason, and it was before I had my first match, when I was in the ring training, when I was like, I wonder if I can jump up and do a split and land on the top rope in the corner and actually have enough momentum to not get stuck, but bounce, back and do I didn't know what a moonsault was then, but flip back onto my stomach, and I was always trying to do moves that I hadn't, and I still see moves now that are done that people that understand the same desires that I had, and they come up with cool moves, and I'm like, man, I wish I would have come up with that first. That's cool. That still happens. But I mean, I had some pushback for sure. One of them that comes to mind is Stan Hansen, because I started wrestling in All Japan. Started wrestling in All Japan in '93 when I was 22, just turned 22, and Stan liked me, but at the same time, he thought that my stuff didn't have anywhere in the business. I was the only one, trying to do a backflip off the guardrail, and he didn't really see that fitting into the match. And so, like, beforehand, when we'd be in the dressing room, he'd be like, we'd be talking about stuff, and someone would say, should we get Rob in there? And he'd be like, oh geez, yeah, tag Claude in there. He always called me Claude. He'd say, yeah, tag Claude in there and let him do all his crazy shit, and somebody get me back in right away so I can try and get everyone to believe it again. And he was it was like that. It was like that. I had to earn his respect from actually being in the ring with him, and then he actually gave me the props and said, I'd never seen it from that angle before. Like you were, because I gave him a couple of shoulders in the corner, did a backflip and ran at him and kicked him or something, and he's blind. He's like, you were right there, and then boom, you disappeared. I didn't know where you went. I gotta say, and I was like, Stan, are you saying that I actually have a place in this business? And he's like, well, yeah, you do. And I said, but you used to tell him my shit didn't have any room in the business. He goes, well, you didn't back then.
That's sad.
The old grumpy guys were the best. Murdoch used to tell Ricky and Robertson, go in there and do all your fake shit. When he gets done, I'll tell him it's real. I'll show him it's real.
Exactly. Those were. I'm sure Stan said the exact same shit. but I get it now because of me criticizing what I watch on TV now, and I'm like, oh my God, a lot of these guys watched me or some of my peers were inspired by it, but they didn't have that old school training to put that mentality in them. So there's a big gap missing. And so when I'm watching it, I can't watch for 2 or 3 minutes without starting to complain a little bit. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I'll do it with Katie to help her learn, because she wrestles and she's been in it much less, and I'll point things out, and I'll say, oh, you see that? See what they did right there, and I'll point that out, but it takes away from my enjoyment a little bit, where I get irritated because I'm like, this is becoming acceptable for the business. Then I'm like, am I Stan Hansen?
That's right.
We
That's
all go
right.
through that. We all go through that, Rob. So Rob, you're working for the Sheik there. How long was you with the Sheik before you made your move? I believe it was down to Florida, right?
Yeah. Actually, I didn't really consider moving away from him, but it was like, so I started training with the Sheik in December of '89, and then I went down to Florida in '91. And so 2 years, I guess, later, it was like November of '91.
How did that connection come about?
So I was in USWA in 1990 in the summer, and me and Dango, Sabu, Judge Dredd, doing the 700-mile loop, and Tex Slazenger was there, right?
Yeah,
Tex Slazenger's stepdad was Ron Slinker.
right.
And so Ron Slinker's there at the show, and Ron Slinker took a liking to me. He's the first guy to pull me aside.
Ron had that same similar background as you did, too.
Yeah. In fact, he handed me well, I guess I'll get to that. He took a liking to me, and he's the first person to pull me aside and say, kid, I think you're going to be a world champion someday. This is my first year. He said, I might be wrong. I wasn't wrong about Rick Steamboat. I wasn't wrong about Rick Rude, whoever. He mentioned like 2 or 3 people. I don't know. And so he told me he's opening up a territory in Tampa, going to open up the Sportatorium. He'd love to have me come down there, gave me his number and stuff. So after I was finished at USWA, I just kept in constant contact with him. He wasn't ready. He gave me Manny Fernandez's info. I went to Charlotte and wrestled for South Atlantic for a little bit. Eventually, I was like, dude, what's the holdup, man? I gotta, boom, I'm ready to go. I was just excited. I drove down there and I helped him open up the Sportatorium. I helped paint the bleachers, helped hang the sign from the roof, everything. I wanted to go. And he's the one that gave me the name Rob Von Dam. And he was into Yoshikai. He liked my martial arts and said, he gave me a black belt to wear and said, if anyone asks you, tell them, that you earned that through me, which, he taught me 1 or 2 Yoshikai moves, but really that made me a prima donna, walking, being a young kid, walking around with the black belt, and I was staying with the promoter, sleeping on his floor. I instantly had some heat with some of the boys there.
No.
Yeah, got to experience some of that side. That's how that happened, though. And then Slinker, I wrestled there once a week on Thursdays at the Sportatorium for $35, and started wrestling at Universal Studios for Eddie Mansfield. And there was another guy that had he was a coin collector that ran shows once a month in Florida, and then just networking,
And then you got to end up with Bill Watts in WCW, right?
Yes, Slinker was behind that as well. He had gotten Tex Slazenger in there, so Dennis was already there, and I had already moved to Georgia at that point. By the way, when I was in Tampa, when people want to talk about paying dues, I'm sleeping on the floor of this apartment. There's Rod, who's 65 pounds, big Marine with that bellowing, loud, deep voice, yelling at these little Shih Tzus all day, rah! And fighting with his wife, who was Dennis's. Dennis lived there. The wife lived there. Ron's son lived there. I mean, there was so much. Oh my God, there was so much.
It was bad enough you had to live with Dennis. I got a drunk dial from Dennis the other day. He told me he loved me and hung up. That I hadn't heard from him in 3 months.
That's awesome.
Oh, he's the best. I love Tex.
Yeah. He had to put up with me. Looking back, I was such a kid. You know what I mean? Like looking back at it, I didn't know the right thing to do, whatever. I actually ended up moving from that place in with this girl, because that's when you're at that age, that's what you try and do, find a sugar mama, try, you know what I mean, is, you know, basically looking back, it's a horrible values to have at the time, you know, to use people like that. But anyway, but this girl, I ended up moving in with her, and she was someone that Dennis had dated. I didn't even think twice about it at the time, you know, looking back at it, like he was kind of upset, and I didn't even understand why. I'm like, you didn't care about her, did you? And he was like, he goes, I never thought about it. And I was like, oh shit.
That's great.
I don't even know if I said thank you, you know, when Loma would make us food. I mean, just looking back, but that's the problem with growing and improving, is you always look back on a lesser you. And that's something I always have a hard time forgiving myself, or anything stupid that flashbacks in my head of anything, saying the wrong thing, making the wrong decision. You know what I mean? I don't know if that's normal for people, but I guess it is probably.
I think it is, yeah. It's all part of life. So during that time, they had, you know, that was right before the start of the Monday Night Wars and ratings exploding everywhere. Why did you choose ECW over, say, WCW or WWE at the time? Because obviously you were a hot commodity. You could have gone anywhere you wanted.
I love the ECW style. I mean, that was just well, first off, Sabu and I were already doing that style. Like, we were already diving to the floor. He was putting people through tables. That was his gimmick. We would fight in the crowd. The first time I wrestled Sabu, well, first off, Sabu was in ECW. He was my mentor, right? And so at that time, this is 96, at that time of my career, anything that he said was good enough for me. You know, if he would have said, hey, come with me, we're gonna go kick those two guys' asses, let's go, I would have followed him, because that was my position. I felt like I was his soldier, right? And so, like, when I first got into the dressing room, he's like, those guys think they're good, but they're the shits. They think they're good, they're the shits. Fuck those guys. They don't know what they're doing. And so I just hung by Sabu. So that was my mentality when I was at that age. Same with Sheik. Anything Sheik said, I would do. And Sabu, because he was an extension of the Sheik. Sabu was already there. I didn't know, but he had been telling Paul to call me and to bring me in. I didn't know. Paul called one time, wanted me to go up and do a job for Mikey Whipwreck. I was like, no, I'm good. I'm good. Thanks, dude. I was wrestling for All Japan, and Paul's offered me a couple $100. And I mean, at a zero on that, that's what I'm making in All Japan at the time per week. So it was an easy decision, you know, like, no, I'm good. You know, I'm making 2K a week, probably more at that time. I started at 2K a week with All Japan. So by 96, I'm doing, you know, even much better than that. But it was, so financially, I was like, why would I like my schedule with All Japan. I could name my tours. Baba was great. And then Sabu was like, did Paul call you? Yeah. And I told him how it went. He's like, what? He told you what? That mother. And he got mad. Let me call him. And he was like really aggressive about it, Sabu. He kept, did Paul call you? No. What? All right, bam. And I didn't really care. But eventually it worked out. Paul brought me up. It was intimidating at first because I was in Georgia, you know, where to get over as a baby face, you know, you're like, come on, everybody, USA. You know, it's like, that's, now it's all adults wearing dark, like rock and roll shirts. They're waiting for you to slip up so they can say, you fucked up. You fucked up. You know, and it was just, so there was a lot of pressure. But I had my first match with Sabu, and afterwards, when we came through the dressing room, all the other boys were standing up and clapping. And I remember, like, I didn't understand it. I'd never seen that before. I really didn't know. I walked through everybody, and I was confused. I didn't know. I didn't know. Was that sarcasm? I really didn't know. Did I do that for everybody? Is that part of the tradition? And I waited till Sabu got with me, and I told him what, when I came back, everyone was clapping. Well, what was that? And he said, "Oh." And I go, was that like sincere? I mean, I don't know. He goes, "No, that's because they liked the match." He said that. Sabu said, "No." He goes, "They never seen anything like me and you. So for them, that was like, for me and you, that was a regular match. But for them, that was like outstanding." So they were clapping because we put on a classic for them. I was like, "Oh, really?"
Did
There's a movie.
you ever have an audience? We were on the road all the time, so we never got to see really WCW or ECW, that much. But looking back at the tapes, the passion of the crowd, and being in front of them later, when ECW was kind of on its way out, but that was the most passionate crowd I'd ever been in front of.
Right.
Have you ever experienced anything like that other than ECW? How would you compare it? I guess is a better question to say WWE or the different places you've worked.
Yeah, I've been. I found little pockets all around the world where the crowd tries to emulate them, by having their own chants and stuff. One of them was in England. It was like half. It seemed like half wrestling, half soccer crowd, because they would do the, wherever, but it was. But they were, man. I swear, I went 15 minutes before locking up. Every time they would end one chant, they'd go into another chant. And then the guy I was wrestling had so many things, and he had something where he was playing the turnbuckles like the bongos in rhythm to what the crowd was doing. And I was like, okay, they got their own thing here. I get it. And the crowd was entertaining themselves. That's kind of how ECW crowd was. They were definitely part of the show. We counted on that, and they entertained themselves. The only thing I can even come close to, really, there wasn't anything like that, but those fans are everywhere, though. You find fans everywhere that would have come out to the ECW show if ECW had been in their town, or maybe they did even. So it wasn't, just that Philly crowd, but those were the OGs, Philly and New York. I did see John Cena get booed a couple times. The first time was in Wales, I believe, Cardiff, Wales. And everybody was booing him like he was a heel, and I hadn't seen that before. And Cena was such a professional. He got on the microphone and he was like, "That's all right. That's all right. Yeah, go ahead and boo me," and then he talked to them for a minute about how he's glad that they're reacting and that they're not just sitting there bored out of their mind. As long as they're screaming, that tells them they're having a good time, and boom, boom, boom. And then pretty soon he just turned them around. They were cheering for him.
Yeah, I saw him do that time after time, especially when I retired. I was just doing commentary, so I got a first, front row seat for it. And he'd come out there when they'd be half booing, "Let's go, Cena. Cena sucks." And he was so good on the microphone. He'd end up changing them all around and getting them all on his side. And he did it every single week. It was amazing to watch.
He's the champ.
It's, Tommy Dreamer always talks about ECW. It's amazing that, I don't know how far the run was of ECW, the real high times of ECW, maybe 5 years. I don't know what it was. The big time.
Is that a pun?
The for people to still chant ECW 20 something years later, it tells you how strong that brand was.
Yeah. We really impacted their lives, much like anything. Like we all remember lines from movies that we saw when we were a kid, just because it impacted us so much, that it's integrated in our whole life. And ECW was like that. I really learned to love it. Because before I went up there, I'm already booked. I know I'm going up to Philly in a couple of weeks, so I'm trying to watch it on the Sunshine Network, and just seeing Sabu jump from the chairs in the middle of the ring. He runs and jumps from the chair in the middle of the ring all the way to the top rope in the middle, bounces out to the crowd, and the crowd just erupts, like a bomb. And then the next thing it shows, everyone's throwing their chair into the ring, and they're burying the ring with the chairs. Yeah. I saw a fireball go out into the crowd. It had that car crash appeal where even if you weren't a wrestling fan, if you're flipping through the channels, there's a good chance that you're going to stop and be like, "Holy crap, what is this?" And that's what I really liked about it. I thought that it made wrestling cool when wrestling wasn't necessarily cool, for everybody. It was, I didn't even really, and still don't really connect with the musical aspect but that was a big part of it. I'm not a very musical person. You know, I heard my song Walk on the radio, and it was perfect for what I was doing with Sabu. We were having this matter of respect angle. So I heard respect, and I felt the energy, and I was like, whoa. And I asked Paul, can I use this as my song instead of this Joe Satriani Lords of Karma song that I was using since IWF in Orlando? And everyone, you know, thinks that I'm a great rock aficionado, you know, and I, you know, I really don't know much about it, but I know that that's the same culture, that those fans love it, and so they would, man, they were rocking. Everyone had such a good time. It's seeing Bam Bam Bigelow throw Spike Dudley out to the crowd, and they catch him, and he's body surfing and stuff. I really thought, if we got out a worldwide stage where everyone would get a chance to see us while they're flipping through the channel, you know, I always thought we would get enough people that would be drawn to it for the company to grow enough to where we wouldn't have to go anywhere else. And that was my favorite style artistically, to express myself and to be showcased in. And so, you know, for all those reasons, I really wanted it to go, and so did everybody else that was there. That's why we stuck with it for so long. But obviously, looking back at it now, you can't light fans on fire.
And as Tommy Dreamer told us, he was on the show with us, and Tommy goes, and the music, we never cleared it with anybody. We just played it. There were a few things, which added to the cult following. I mean, you know, which made people feel like they were part of something. You know, I always thought the start of NXT, I don't know about now, but like the start of NXT, when it became kind of this groundswell, you know, before you had AEW and all, and some of the other groups, was kind of like ECW PG was something, you know, because you had these crowd felt like they were part of the show, but it was their show, kind of, in a way. Do you see a similarity there? At least how the way NXT when it started, not necessarily now, but when it started.
I see some similarities. For me, I didn't feel it with the crowd as much, but I probably didn't watch it as much as you. But I had a couple of matches there, and I don't remember feeling it from the crowd, but just the fact that it was like somebody coming up as an outsider, as the non-traditional ulterior, you know, product, and that whole rebellious nature, and with them trying to be different. I thought, for those reasons, I thought that that it could be compared. You know, I could see that for sure, but I don't really remember the crowd's reaction.
And it may just be that the crowd wanted something so bad like ECW, they latched on to the thing that they identified with most.
All right.
That's true. That helped us out a lot, was that people felt personally offended by some of the stuff that was being forced down their throat, so to say. So that definitely helped turn a lot of fans our way.
Rob, sorry, one of your feuds that kind of really set you apart and kind of defined your career was the guy you mentioned a while ago, Bam Bam Bigelow. I guess that was for the World TV or the ECW TV Championship, and you guys made that belt as prestigious as your world title belt through that feud there. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I loved working with Bam Bam. He was somebody that I respected a lot. You know, I saw him on TV before I went to one of the Kellogg Center shows. He was at the Monster Factory, and they were doing some special on wrestling because wrestling was in town. So the local news was airing this piece, and that's the first place I saw Bam Bam Bigelow. I don't know if that was my first wrestling show or one, you know, towards the beginning, but I always liked him, and working with him was an honor because, you know, he was a big star. I mean, for ECW, anytime somebody really big would come in, it would just, you know, really help us get a rub. You know, anybody, Rick Rude, I loved it when he was there, and Sid Vicious, and you know, a lot of people stopped through there. It always helped us, and Bam Bam really worked his ass off for us. And he was someone that was already like so well established, you know, that just having a win on him would be a great victory for my career. One of the things that I really loved about wrestling with him was the fact that he was a receipt giver, and I just loved it. I just love that old school kind of thinking. And sometimes, I remember like I had a chair and I went to like throw it at his head, and I don't know what happened, if I threw it extra hard or if he turned whatever happened. Bam! I remember when it hit him. I remember going, "Oop, a receipt's coming for sure." And he just grabs he grabs the whole table and picks it up, throws the whole table at me, wham, and of course, it gets a huge pop. But then there's no personal feelings after that one moment. It's over, then it's just back to business. And I always enjoyed that.
I always thought when you're a tater guy, you pick him up and you go, "Are you okay?" Your question is not, "Are you okay?" Your question is, "How mad are you?"
Yeah.
Because you know you're going to get it back.
Where's it coming?
You're just wondering how hard it's
going
going
to just open yourself up.
Yes, that's right.
It's true.
And the worst is when they wait a while. When you go, "Okay, go ahead and give it to me." They don't give it to you right away. Go, "Oh no, it's going to be unexpected."
We're not talking about Bob Holly, are we?
His whole match is paid back.
Yeah. No, that was his deal. Gets talked about a lot because it was a receipt for the non-wrestling event that he brought to the ring. That might be waiting a little too long.
You're right. Right. Yeah, I was first match with Bob for, oh my God, about 9 months. I enjoyed it. Back then you just went out there and didn't get out of the ring, didn't do nothing, had a normal finish. I enjoyed working with Bob.
I went through different cycles of motivation when I was with WWE because, like, at first I thought they might change my name, erase my past. I really didn't know that we were bringing ECW back and I was representing. So that really excited me. I was like, sweet, I get to be myself. And all my efforts to this point are acknowledged. And that was great during the Alliance. And then something probably happened, some promises in my head being filled up with stuff that doesn't happen or whatever. But there was definitely room for downward. And then I got the hardcore title, and now it's like, sweet, every match is like an ECW match for me, and I really enjoyed that. And then whatever for a while, and then we brought ECW back, and I was like so excited again. I was like, man, this just added 10 years onto my career. Now my dream has come true. We're doing ECW style on the WWE's stage in front of the whole world. And I was so happy at first. And it was cool at first. I'm sure I don't know if I'm jumping ahead on.
No, that's fine. Because I was going to ask you how you felt
Yeah, I was gonna say when I knew when Paul suggested working Bob Holly, I got so excited because I knew he was so snug, shall we say, snug. And he really liked to bring it to people, and I knew that was going to bring it right back out of me, and that I was fighting with the passion, the renewed fire, of trying to help ECW grow and look good, and so I was really looking forward to that, and I really enjoyed the matches I had with him.
That's something. I think all three of us can agree to this thing. You really like a snug worker. You really like somebody that's only where they're at, and it always fired up my adrenaline. It always gave me goosebumps. Like a guy like Blackjack Mulligan, that guy's gonna beat the crap out of me, so I gotta fight my ass back. It just brings out that competitiveness in you, and that you're a very competitive guy. So a guy in there like you and Bam Bam, or you in hardcore, man, that had to bring that out of you. It had to bring some excitement to you where I'm going to get to really, really do something tonight.
Yeah, definitely. And we didn't, we never had people back then in ECW ask us if we ever really hit each other because they knew we were,
especially that blood real. They knew it was real.
Yeah, and we would use the chairs that they were sitting on, grab them right from the fans and like wrap them around our heads. So most people knew, but some and the tables, that's something Sabu said, that he was disappointed to see the art be compromised in that way. He said, things that would already be there, like a ringside table is already there. You incorporate that in the match, but then it went from gimmicking the tables, and bringing rubber turkeys and stuff that would never be near for the match, and the Singapore King, whatever it was. But New Jack would come out with shopping carts full of stuff that the fans would bring, so that at least he had a reason. But Sabu made it actually organic when he started like.
So New Jack, all that stuff he had in his grocery cart, that was brought in.
The fans would bring it.
Wow,
that was the fans would bring it. Yeah, we were always looking forward to seeing the funniest items that the fans would bring for him to use.
Yeah, and it became a high spot. You talk about the Sabu's point. It became a high spot where you'd flip up the apron and people would pop because they have no idea what's under there. Hornswoggle lived under there. Tables were under there. Chairs were under there.
I do it every match now. Yeah, here's the kitchen sink. Here's a couple logs for some reason. Somebody in a match that I had recently asked, how many doors do I need? Doors? What do you mean doors? Yeah, like instead of tables, we can go through doors. I'm like, I'm good, bro.
Yeah, they were looking for an APA door is what they were looking for.
Oh yeah, I guess so. Probably. Yeah, I'm always trying to tell everybody like it doesn't mean anything if you go, if you make it mean nothing. But that's a whole. Everyone here knows that in this trio.
Big Boss Man got the hardcore title, and after 2 matches, he gave it to Vince. He goes, "You can have this back." That's so funny. Ray hated that title.
Well, Jerry, you were in the office. Maybe you got some insight to this, but I felt like, before I had it, it was a joke. It meant you're going to get a plunger on your face or fight in the ball pit, but I added, just like with the TV title in ECW, I feel like I added prestige and respect by having really good matches with the hardcore title. I started main eventing live events with the hardcore title, and then they got rid of it. So I've always had this theory that I made it mean more than anybody ever wanted it to, so they got rid of it.
Well, you're right. I mean, it was a fun title where especially that battle royal, hardcore battle royal we had at WrestleMania out in LA, where like 15 champions in 20 minutes or something like that. It kind of destroyed that hardcore concept. I think at that point there is when it kind of started going a little comedic, and then when you and hardcore started running through it, there was nothing comedic about it. It was the brutality going on. And you guys are the ones that elevated that title.
I had some good matches with him, Sabu, of course, Big Show, and Test. When ECW first came out, and JR would say ECW means anything goes. It was a really hopeful time for us, and then somebody screwed it up and dropped the title over cannabis, and but I mean that was. But besides that, though, just the fact that it was changing, well, I mean, this is, well, I don't know, I'm bringing this, but ECW was cool for a while anyway,
right.
And then it became much like the other companies, and the fact that I felt like the talent pool was watered down because now you got SmackDown guys and Raw guys competing on ECW, which is confusing because I don't even know who's in ECW and who's not. And then also, once you said there was one Extreme Rules per night. That was like, okay, you're definitely getting rid of it then, because one Extreme Rules match per night is all it's gonna have. And Vince said, Rob, I need my refs to have credibility. So I'm like, well, I guess it's on its way out.
Yeah, and a lot of those guys that went to ECW weren't really ECW type guys that would have gone there. They were guys they maybe they couldn't find something for that had a lot of talent. And they thought, well, put them in ECW and see how they develop. Well, that's not what ECW was. ECW was a distinct style. And those guys, some of those guys that come up through, maybe the power plant, they go on WCW, they never knew that style. They never grew up in a territory that had anything hardcore like that. So it was too big of a jump for those guys to jump into ECW and hope to bring that brand as big as it was. It was just not going to work.
I think
And
you're right on that. I think as the office, as we're thinking, I think we didn't really look at that as a viable part of WWF as it was built at that time there. But as Rob and Bob and some of these really hardcore guys started developing it, I think Vince actually started seeing that this could have a spot on our roster here. So
Yeah.
so you're saying they didn't bring it back just to bury it? It's a
what?
theory. So you're saying they didn't bring it back just to bury it? It's a
No,
theory.
I don't think they did. I don't think it was ever meant to bury it. I just think the Vince didn't bring it back because they just didn't have a way to a place to go with it in their mind. You know, I mean, if we'd had somebody that had the ECW experience like Paul or you or somebody else and Tommy or some of those guys helping out at that time, I think we could have continued that thing.
We were
Because
there.
you guys were making it legit. I mean,
We were there to help, though, but to that point, though, like I said before, you can't be lighting fans on fire. you know
Well, I
Right.
think the liability of it too kind of scares
Yeah.
the vets at times. Yeah.
Yeah,
yeah
and I always thought at the time, Jerry, that it was that the guys that were in charge of it didn't understand ECW completely. Because understand, I mean, during the time of ECW, we were in this war with WCW, so those guys weren't watching it. They were busy trying to stay alive and keep the company afloat. And then all of a sudden they're in charge of ECW. I just thought they never understood it. Was my opinion.
I'm sure that's part of it. And my opinion on that is that they thought hardcore meant rent the same shitty buildings that ECW used to rent and use the same $500 advertising budget and see who shows up. That's what it felt like. Because
Right.
I'm like, oh my God, we're back. I've been in WWE for I don't know, 5-6 years, and now I'm back at the Ross Raver ice rink. What the hell? Why? And
I will tell you this, Rob. I mean, all of us, we've been to every major arena in the world, but when we got to go and do the pay-per-view in the Hammerstein Theater, you go to certain venues, you just get flashbacks and you get kind of goosebumps. When I went to the Hammerstein, I'd never been there before, but I'd heard all the history that ECW. Walking in that building and that morning, getting up and preparing to go there, I got really excited because this was something new that I was experiencing, and I was hoping some of those ghosts would just jump out and come alive during that event there, which they did. We had that was, to me, that was one of the better ECW shows, the first Hammerstein show that we went to there. But
Well,
it was a thrill to work in a building like that.
for us, that was our Pontiac Silverdome. You know what I mean? Like the live events, some of them were some pretty crappy little, armories or schools or whatever. Although I saw a lot of growth when I was there, from when I started, and crowds were always getting bigger. But yeah, that was always like one of our very best buildings was the Hammerstein Ballroom. And then the live events, when it came to the live events with WWE, I'd find that we were in these crappy small buildings again, and that promoting them was done probably by Bubba visiting the strip club, just like it used to, so there'd be a few hundred people there, and that affected the paycheck, so it was like, wow, now I'm wrestling ECW style on WWE center stage, but I'm getting paid indie wages that I got made, probably when I started out with ECW. So that wasn't cool. And JR said, hey, no, there's no crowds there. Because as it is, I got to pull from the SmackDown pool to take care of you ECW guys. And I always felt no one knows we're there because no one's promoting the shows. But also I thought, well, how's that fair to the SmackDown guys? I mean, isn't there kind of some formula that supposed to be that we're supposed to be using? But that was something that I was disappointed in. Like I would have been. We were doing the TVs. We would split with the SmackDown crew, as I remember it. So the crowd would be there for SmackDown, they'd stay for ECW, something like that. But then yeah, once we started doing our own ECW shows, it wasn't real exciting wrestling in front of real small crowds again.
Yeah, and it's kind of like WCW. When they tried to revive WCW as well, it wasn't really the WCW product. You guys didn't have your full roster. Guys didn't have an ECW crew. Like with the
Right.
WCW, you had Booker and DDP, but you didn't have NWO. You didn't have Bischoff there. They came later, but it just wasn't. It didn't work because it wasn't the same. That wasn't what people like watching at 6:05 every Saturday afternoon
Uh,
to watch. It wasn't ECW that people like to watch on TV and be so passionate about.
Right. True. A lot of people would just protest just on the idea of that alone. Just that it's not the real ECW. I'm not going to waste my time. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, Rob. When ECW ends up finally going away, you during this time you end up being the run as the world champion and all that. How was it different? You had the longest run, I guess, 700 days ECW. How was it different, that championship run and the championship in WWE?
Well, let's compare it by comparing that 700 days to like 4 days. That's maybe more than 4. I mean, I think someone said, thank you, Jerry. I'm holding for laughter from John. It's not happening.
Yeah, I was like, oh my God, was it 4 days?
I'm gonna go ahead and move forward. No, I heard some fan recently said it was only a couple weeks, which I didn't realize. But either way, it was. Let's see. That's a really good question because I'm trying to, like, when I had the TV title, I was obviously very proud of it. I felt like I added value to that championship. And I mean, if I could step outside of my shell, it's not just ego. I mean, the fans, they would sometimes chant whole effing show from before the ECW show started, sometimes even through some of the matches, which was rude, all the way up until I would come out at the main event. Sometimes that would happen. You know what I mean? Like, so I didn't have to question, not that there was 20,000 people there, but I didn't have to question whether my efforts were my contributions were helping at all, in the show. And there's a lot of pressure to live up to, to go out there then. But I loved it, I loved the challenge of it. Calling myself the whole effing show already is a lot to live up to, but it really meant a lot to me. It meant everything. When I would go home, everybody would go home. I wanted them to all be happy they bought a ticket. And I had my match only to guarantee that. I had no control over the rest of the show, but through my match and through connecting with the crowd and having that 30-minute fight/party with them, and knowing that they all went home happy, and knowing, that hopefully the rest of the show was great too, regardless of that, I can feel, like I know they're going home happy. And because of that, the TV title is now, means as much as the heavyweight title, which means that only because of its history, and its tradition. Comparing that to having a WWE title, where WWE and that position mean way more than I do, way more than I ever would. I'm a blip in the radar of history on the WWE World Championship list. That's how it felt at the time. I never knew how long I would have the belt, but it never went to my head where I felt like I was irreplaceable or even in a safe place. The fact that I felt like I was bringing ECW back, though, and the fact that I did it my way, I felt incredibly good about that, because I never would have been the world champion if I hadn't changed the entire playing field around by suggesting to Vince that we bring in ECW back, and then all of my efforts with everyone's efforts forward. So for all of that to happen, and my reward being that championship belt, I did feel like really good about that, and like I earned it. So hopefully that answers your question.
No, it does. No, I was just interested. It's such a different dynamic. That ECW. You were there, and you were the guy for so long, and that was such a passionate crowd that followed every single move and every single person. And then in WWE, you're right, it can kind of be a big machine sometimes, and sometimes you just kind of get lost. Sometimes you get plugged in. Sometimes you are the one being used a lot. It's just a different dynamic and a different feeling to get from one company to another.
It felt good. Like I knew I was temporarily, the man in the spotlight, and that I had done it by sticking to my guns and by being different. So that felt good because I definitely didn't come up the traditional way. But and also it's cool that I was champion of both. I had the ECW belt and the WWE belt because it was written that way. But that felt cool because it was really giving ECW a rub, a chance for people to really notice it.
Yeah, I guess when you go to conventions now, what percentage is ECW people that want to talk to you about ECW? 90 something percent?
Yeah, 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 it is. Which is cool because I had, some of my most fun matches then. So at least I know that they were there during that part of me developing and stuff. I'm pretty proud of my career. Anybody that says that they watched me, I think they probably saw some good matches. I'm not known for having too many bad matches. And so, I've always been proud in that way. But yeah, it's rare that fans tell me that they didn't watch ECW and they only know me from WWE. But there are those 10 percenters too.
Do you still find the ECW fans as passionate about the business today as they were back in those days?
I think that a lot of them have moved on. I mean, a lot of them, they do feel that way, just like they might say the original Rolling Stones or they'll never be the same or whatever. Again, I don't even know music. That just popped in my head. I'm just saying, if there's someone that says so and so will never be the same because it changed a long time ago, that will never change. That'll always be in their head. They'll always feel like ECW was the shit, and it'll never happen again. So, but most of them, I think if they're wrestling fans, they don't stay back there in yesterday.
When you talk about yesterday, certain things in wrestling changed wrestling. Steamboat versus Savage changed wrestling in that they didn't have a ton of false finishes back then. You'd have one or two, that was it. And all of a sudden, Steamboat and Savage have this match where you have one after another. In Japan, you could see the progression coming where people would start stomping their feet. And now the boys are wanting to get them stomping their feet. It changed the business. You changed the business with Sabu. Do you look at it now and think, I enjoy what the guys are doing now? And you think, you do it like some type of pride, or are you kind of like the old guy like me and Jerry going, these guys don't know what they're doing? Which we're really not that way, but a lot of guys are. How do you look at it now, and the pride that you feel having changed the business?
I would say I'm a bit on the fence about it. I guess I'm gonna have to say I'm right on the fence 50-50 because every time I think of how to articulate my thoughts, I keep changing it back and forth. Like I said earlier, I can't watch it without criticizing it. And some of the exact same stuff that I used to do and have fun, for instance, ECW was about progressing all the time. Like you got to keep pushing it. Once you pushed it this far, you got to push it further because we've already seen this. And the first ECW show I was at in Philly, I was so impressed by the way the crowd was screaming at the end of the show. And I thought, well, this has to be their biggest show ever. I'd never seen anything like that. And I was asking Sabu, I was like, this was? And he said, no, we're here every 3 weeks. And it's always, it's always bigger. I'm like, how? I'm like, there's no way, because I thought they just blew their nut. There's like no way. And then the next time they come by, we're back there in 3 weeks, and I'm watching the show, and it's building and it's building. And I'm like, yeah, but still, I mean, last time they had so much run-ins and everything. you know, and then this time, boom, the lights go out. I never, whoa, what a feeling. And now all of a sudden that alone brought it to the next level. And then anyway, I used to do the helo. I grabbed the top rope and can flip over, and it was a daredevil move to do that all the way to someone standing on the floor. I started running and clearing the rope and doing the helo and hitting them. And everyone always complained because I'm heavy and I have a big ass. But some guys would just sidestep it. I'm not gonna name unless you want to know, but in the spirit of ECW, you know, I set a chair up by the rope, and then I hit the opposite ropes, and I cleared the chair and the ropes. Next time I'm there, I put 2 chairs there. I cleared both chairs and the ropes, you know, and for me, you know, I was like hoping somebody was following the story that I was telling, you know. Nowadays, if I see somebody dive out and do the helo, and there's 8 guys out there that are just standing there looking at him, waiting to catch him, I can't feel good about that. You know,
right?
I mean,
right.
What are those guys doing? Why don't they just stop wrestling? You know, why can't they grab each other's heads or something? Why do they got to just stand there? The guy hasn't even hit the ropes yet. You know, you got so much time. It's almost like everyone wants the other guy to know how safe it is, that they don't care if the crowd knows how safe it is. So that's why I'm on the fence. I'm, you know, I'm flattered, you know, for you to say that, you know, that I helped change the business, but in a lot of ways, I get where these guys did it without having any hands-on instruction from who they're imitating.
Rob, a question I'd like to discuss with you. You guys, every match was so extreme, and you just said in a statement there, you're watching the show build. And, you know, for us backstage, were there any restraints like on the opening match? Because main event's going to do 3 chairs and, you know, jump out with a ball of flames or something like that. Was the first match allowed to do whatever they wanted to do, and how could you build your show to the main event if there was no
so that was part of the competition that I enjoyed. There was no set rule. There was just the traditional respect, you know what I mean? Which would be breached all the time, you know what I mean? Like Sabu would be like, I'm making this up, but he'd be like, Axel Rotten just threw a fireball out and, you know, lit the table on fire in the 4th match, and I'm doing this, you know, with fire at the main event. And a lot of the guys wouldn't know better, or they get mad at each other. That happened all the time. I almost thought it was funny at first, but then I learned to feel that I appreciated that it was respectful when people would come up and ask me if it was okay if they do a top rope frog splash. You know what I mean? But I never ever told anybody not to do anything. Even if sometimes I thought it would not necessarily be as good for the show overall. Being one of the boys, I was always balancing that a lot of times in the wrong way throughout my career for the boys, but in that manner, like I never wanted to feel like I held anybody back. So if someone came up and said, "Hey, you know, is it cool if I do the frog splash in my match?" And I would always say, "Are you gonna do it better than me?" you know, and I enjoyed that about it. Like I said earlier, I'd come out there in the main event, and I would have that personal pressure to try to put on the best matches people had all night, regardless of the rest of the show. And part of that was not holding the rest of the show back. So, you know, overall, if I was the show runner, some of that stuff could have been controlled more, and it might have been better as an overall presentation, but it definitely wasn't like that there. I think recently, I think I was wrestling in Canada somewhere in the last month. I was wrestling somewhere, and someone asked, "Do you mind if I do a Van Daminator in my match?" That's named Van Daminator.
Yeah. If you have to ask the person that the move's named after to do it, you probably shouldn't do it.
Probably shouldn't do it. Rob, what you got coming up here in your future here? You got Japan or any? Do you have any books out that you want to talk about?
Not books, no. Although I take I have audio files that I'm saving to put the book together, but it's not at a stage of development, where it's worth bringing up right now. But it's something I get asked a lot. Am I ever going to do a book? Always, I've planned on doing a book, but just like everything, I go with the flow. The universe will tell me when it's time. That's always worked for me. I'm 51 and going with the flow as opposed to trying to make things happen and follow, the conformity of others. This works best for me. So, but I would like to plug my YouTube page though. It's at the Real RVD. Yeah, and like these matches that I have, I try to get those on there, and I also record segments of the whole trip. I have fun doing that, put them together, and that's the way to keep current with me. All my social media is the Real RVD, but the YouTube is how to keep current because I will bring my camera to the Mall of America next week. And I'll be
and it's realrvd.com for YouTube.
The Real RVD. It's YouTube.com/the Real RVD or YouTube/the Real RVD. No, YouTube.com/the Real RVD. I guess
most
YouTubers know.
Most people are smarter than me and Jerry. They can figure it out.
I'm shaking my head. I'm shaking my head. Listen to you guys. What are they called?
Real RVD.
Just go to YouTube and type in RVD, and you're going to get
people to watch it. And I don't know how to do that yet. I'm just.
Rob, you and I met initially at Bobby Duncan's funeral, right?
Is that where we met?
I think that's where we met. Yeah, you and Sabu had come down, and I remember Sabu getting a call from Paul Heyman. And he was trying to get you guys to go to the show, and Sabu saying that this is important. I just thought it's so cool that you guys came down because Bobby and I started off as roommates when we started off wrestling together in Texas.
Oh, Bobby always talked about you. Yeah, in Japan, like he was always, he's always talking about Texas.
That's right. Everything he did was Texas.
Yeah, had a lot of stories about you. He was always.
Well, I think I first met you in Little Amsterdam and British Columbia, BC. Like
oh, is that you? Okay, at Hastings, huh?
Yeah, I think I can't remember.
It was Hastings Avenue. There's the Blunt Brothers and there's Amsterdam Cafe.
Blunt Brothers. I think that's where I was drugged into. Drugged it.
That was the first place that I'd ever been where I could consume cannabis in a public outing and not feel shady. I remember how it felt. It was awkward. It was liberating, but it was like so different than now where, it's legalized. You can smoke on the street basically. But, and it was like, wow, there's other people here. They're just hanging out and they're smoking too. And nobody's judging me like I'm doing drugs, like I'm shooting heroin.
Right.
That was the first place.
Are you considering any strains or any growth, any
new
product that under the RVD?
Yeah. So I got my my CBD company, RVD CBD, which is helping a lot of people. And man, the feedback is so heart touching. People telling me, even if they tried other CBDs that don't work, because there is some bogus stuff out there. Especially when they have it at gas stations and stuff like that. We have to pass all these quality tests, and I'm also instrumental in developing the product. So they are superior, especially our pain cream. But helping so many people, the CBD we can ship anywhere domestically, no problem. I have THC, RVD THC, but that has to be grown and licensed locally in each state. So I have that in Oklahoma. I have it in California. I'm getting it here in Nevada right now. And in New Jersey in a couple of weeks, actually a week and a half, we're going to have the first ever 420 Expo, first convention of its kind. And we have meetings set up with distributors and we're on the grow. So I'm looking to have products everywhere. But besides that, we're also into all these other cannabinoids because in places, I don't know if you've heard of Delta 8 or not. That's legal in a lot of places right there at the gas station. And it basically, it's like one ingredient off of THC. And once your body metabolizes it when it's inside, it gives people very much the same effect of THC. In certain places, they're outlawing D8. So now we have Delta 10, Delta 11, HHC, THC 0. There's all these different products coming out. I'm getting involved in all of them.
Right.
They're all collaborations with people that have different specialties, and like I said, we're on the grow. So that's something that I've been doing for I guess it's going on 3 years. I think at least 2 years, kind of opened up kind of like right before the pandemic, so we've been pushing through that. But that's something good to bring up because obviously the world is starting to catch up with what I know about cannabis and how it can help people and how it's not heroin. And people are at the point now where most people actually know that cigarettes. Now, I don't know if that's true or not. I think most people know that cigarettes are more poisonous than marijuana, but they still look at cigarettes as okay because it's legal and marijuana is doing drugs. So they still, someday they're going to learn and understand that it's even safer than alcohol, but that's everyone else catching up.
Do you have your CDB for canines? Because my dog has cancer, lymphoma cancer, and I give him that CDB oil, and he's very happy dog after I give it to him.
Yeah, I get so many stories like that. I do, but it's not out yet. They're working on the packaging, and now that you mention it, I'm gonna check into that and then put some fire under them because that's something that I'm passionate about. I love animals and have a couple of dogs myself, and I'm giving them someone else's pet CBD, and I need to give them some RVD pet CBD.
Yeah, there you go.
So in the states that you have it, you can't distribute across state lines. So you have to have a distribution place in each state that grows it in that state.
CBD can go across state lines, but THC cannot. Gotcha. It has to be in certain states, THC is illegal, but it's legal in like 34 states. I might be off by like one state, maybe, but recreationally and then medicinally. And what do we have? Like 15 or something. So I forget there's still places, where it's completely outlawed, but the federal guideline still has it outlawed. People don't realize that.
It's stupid. It's legal in these states and it's illegal federally. So there's this gray area. It's dumb to have two.
Yeah, well, right there in DC, it's legal, and damn people that make it illegal is right down the street from where you can buy it.
Right, and the feds are making the laws right there in DC where it's legal. Huh? Yeah,
exactly.
Crazy. Yeah,
we need to get some of the feds on it or off of it. We're not sure which.
But it's only been Schedule 1 controlled substance since 1970. Maybe give it a couple weeks.
That's right. That's right. Well, Rob, I remember so vividly seeing the first time I saw, like I said, the first match I saw like with Scorpio and Benoit, but the first time I saw you and Sabu, I just remember looking at that thinking, oh my God, I can't do any of that. That's just awesome. And then to see your whole career, it's just been so fun to watch. And now that you're doing so well in your business, you're obviously a very smart guy. That's great for the business for us. When guys end up becoming successful in business, it makes our business look so very good. So thank you so much for joining us on our show.
Absolutely. Hey, you got to be somewhere.
Yes, you do.
Thank you, sir.
I just wanted to say that instead of the thanks for having me. Too overdone. Thanks for being here. Thanks for having me.